I wonder if I could ask the people who are way in the back to move forward so that we can. I'm just afraid we're not going to be able to hear you when we have a conversation. Oh, okay. Are these mics not on? The mics are not on?
They're on. There's no one here to operate. Just get a little closer to the mics, or they don't move, do they? What? I can step in real quick. See if I get it. Okay. I've got the sound person here. There's not much. Just get closer and talk over. Okay, go for it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you. So you did hear me. That's good. For those of you who don't know, my name is Lynn Schaefer, Vice President for Administration and Finance, and I want to welcome you to this forum. We weren't sure really how many people would be interested in hearing about parking. We thought a lot. We didn't actually think about this many people coming. This was just set up from another event. But thank you for coming. We through this event, and we appreciate that you all came. What I thought I would do this morning is start out and just give you some background information on how we got to this point. I'm only going to talk for a few minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to our outside experts to really talk about our planning for parking on campus. Just by way of background, back in 2006, when we were asking the state for money for our new Performing Arts and Humanities Facility, we had a campus-wide discussion about where that building should be located. And after that campus-wide discussion, we all agreed that the best location for the academic program was to have it be up above Fine Arts, Engineering, and the ITE building on the site of those parking lots that are up there. It was for adjacency purposes and to make sure that all of those disciplines could work well together. The other location was way down south by the athletic fields and really was judged to be too far away for all the disciplines to work together. So then as funding for the new Performing Arts and Humanities building started wending its way through the process, and we actually received funding in 2008, we started the discussion, okay, we're going to lose this parking, what are we going to do about it? And so we commissioned a parking study in 2008, and I'm going to just give you an overview of the results. Some of you may have seen a much more detailed description of this study. I'm just going to give you the overviews, and you can find a more detailed description online. So the goal of that parking study was to understand our existing parking conditions on campus, develop a plan to address the loss of those spaces at the lots 9 and 16 above Fine Arts and those other buildings, and then to evaluate costs of alternatives. The first thing we did was an inventory, and so we have over 7,000 parking spaces on our campus. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but we do in fact have 7,000 spaces. This is the rendering of the lovely new Performing Arts and Humanities Facility, and I put this up here to just remind us of why we're having this conversation. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're going to get this building. Every single one of our undergraduate students is going to take advantage of this building, and many of our graduate students as well. It's going to be transformative for this campus. It's very exciting. But, of course, citing it here means that we're going to lose these spaces, about 684 spaces on lots 9 and 16. So the parking utilization study, which happened in the spring of 2008, involved 137 students who went out and actually counted the spaces, the empty spaces in our parking lots over a 12-hour period during the spring semester. We then converted those numbers to fall because of course we have more people on campus in the fall, and that gave us the results of the survey. So this is a very complicated chart. I'm not going to go over it in detail, but basically it showed that we have several parking lots that are really underutilized. The yellow line there is the average utilization campus-wide over the course of the day, starting, I don't have a pointer, but starting in the morning, and obviously the peak hours are in the midday, we all know that, and we can see that in midday, even at the peak hour, our total utilization was around this, just above the 70 percentile rate. So as a result of the study, our parking consultants recommended that we reconsider building a parking deck, which we had thought about doing at the time. And so what they were saying was, in fact, we're only operating at 75% of capacity at peak times, and there are sufficient spaces available. We recognize that they're not always available in the places that people want to park, but we have sufficient spaces available on campus. And there are this number of underutilized lots across campus. You're going to hear a lot more about this when our external consultants present their findings. So the recommendation to not build a deck resonated with us for a number of reasons. First, cost. To build a parking deck, we knew that there would be an enormous increase in parking fees for faculty, staff, and students. And you'll hear some specifics later, but really a substantial increase that if we didn't have to do it, then we wanted to be able to save that money for our faculty, staff, and students. And second, all of you know that we signed the climate commitment, and we have a goal to reduce our carbon footprint in the coming years. And so as we are able to reduce the number of single occupant vehicles on campus, then there's even less of a need to build a new parking structure. So we talked with probably over 200 people across campus about this, and really there was unanimous support for not building a deck at this time and trying to more efficiently use the existing parking on campus. So a number of other recommendations of that parking study in 2008 we've already started working on. Sorry, here's some visuals on those underutilized parking lots. You can see this lot 22 is Hilltop Lot, Walker Garage. Lots 13, 17, and 18, those are down south of the loop over by facilities management. And lots 20 and 21, which are up by Walker Avenue Apartments. All right, now we're not going to tell you you have to park there, so don't worry about it. Don't get ahead of yourselves here. Some other recommendations that were made were to improve access to the parking on campus. And these things we actually are already planning to do this summer in preparation for next fall when we're really going to feel the impact of this. You can see that we are improving pedestrian walkways. Down below, we're improving the walkways to lots 13, 17, and 18. We have we're going to reconfigure lots 5 and 12, which are the lots that are, I believe, are behind physics and public policy, so that you don't have to if you can't find a spot in one right now, you have to go out of the parking lot and go around to the next one. We're going to make it so that it's all connected and you can just park, anywhere in that lot. We are focusing on improving wayfinding on campus, realizing that not every strategy is going to work for every individual. And so we're also looking at ways to make it easier for people to car share. We're going to look at zip cars. And some of these strategies probably are mostly targeted at students. There may be some faculty, staff who might be interested in it, but most of them are targeted at students. We have started putting in additional bike racks on campus, a capacity for over 200 bikes on campus by the time we get to, I guess probably within the next year or two, we'll have that much capacity, as well as storage in the residence halls for students. Mass transit, we're trying to improve the public transit routes so that they go to where people are coming from, so it's easier to take buses to and from campus, to take trains to and from campus. All these things are being worked on right now, again, targeted mostly at students. So once we completed this study, we and had this conversation across the campus, we determined that, okay, we're going to move forward in this way to try to better utilize our existing parking, but we need more expertise to figure out exactly what steps we need to take and in what order, and how specifically we're going to deal with this loss of 684 spaces that will happen over the course of this coming summer, assuming that we actually hold on to the funding to start construction of the Performing Arts and Humanities Facility. So we actually went out and searched for consultants with expertise in actually planning parking on campuses. And so we have hired Carl Walker Associates, and they have been at work coming up with strategies for dealing with specifically the 684 space loss this summer, as well as kind of what's coming down the road and what kinds of things we can put in place to more efficiently manage the parking that we have. I would like to introduce Lee Burke and John Nolte over here. They're going to present their ideas for your consideration and for you to give input. And we want to make this as interactive as possible, so please, any concerns, questions, thoughts you have would be greatly valued. I'm going to ask them to give a little bit of background for themselves so that you have a sense of what expertise they bring to bear on this problem. Okay? Again, thanks for coming. Hope you find this interesting and reassuring.
Well, the first question is, can you hear me clearly if I just come down here? Okay, and that might be a little bit better. Of course, I'm still going to have to look around the back, but I also have to change over the computer right quick to get the other presentation up. Just a moment. Is this working? Ah, very nice. Well, it's good to be back on the East Coast. I live in Atlanta, and I'm actually a Virginia native. Graduated from Old Dominion University in 1970. First year was university. And in fact, Old Dominion was my first parking and transportation master plan. They brought me back down there, and it was quite a chore, and I really enjoyed being back on the campus again. Our purpose here, I was a little bit nervous when you used the word expert. I think an expert is someone who's been in the business long enough to know how much more there is to learn, and that's kind of where we are. But we have worked at campuses all over the country. Most recently, I did a parking and transportation master plan for Clemson University, done the same for UNC Charlotte, Old Dominion University, worked with Spelman College in Atlanta, West Georgia College, and just smaller colleges down, Auburn, a few more, VCU. So quite a bit of work with colleges and universities across the country. But John and I both also work at airports, hospitals, and municipalities. We did a master plan for the city of Raleigh and the city of Atlanta fairly recently. So we get the advantage of seeing different environments. Sometimes we see solutions that are applicable in one environment, and we're able to apply it in another. So it really helps to get that cross perspective. But the focus today is on UMBC and what's going on at UMBC and the changes that you all are anticipating. And I'll say at the outset, I'm getting ready to show you a good solution. I think the solution that is there you will like. The direction that we were given from the university was to try to look after the efficiency. Convenience is important, but efficiency is really important. To be able to get your job done day in and day out. So efficiency in terms of where you're going to park has been pretty high priority in terms of direction that we've been given. And I think that what you'll see here in a few moments is a good solution to the situation you have. That's here, as Lynn said, for a very good reason. Your campus is growing. That's a good thing. And the campuses that we normally get involved with are growing. And suddenly the nice comfortable parking arrangements that they had for many years start shrinking because they drop buildings out of the sky onto those parking lots and the capacity goes, and so they have to find other alternatives. And when you're growing fast enough and you don't have unlimited resources in terms of land, you only have really one way of preserving what you had, and that's to go up with parking decks. It's quite expensive, and we'll look at some specific numbers here shortly. So reiterating what Lynn said earlier, the real purpose here is to see if this campus can come up with a good solution that will work for everyone, that will avoid having to spend a significant amount of money and burden you with the cost of building a parking deck. Of course, you all know exactly where the parking deck is going, on lots 9 and 16. And if I misspeak about one of the lot numbers, please excuse me, and I'm sure someone will correct me from the background here.
Yeah, you said the parking deck, Performing Arts Humanities.
Yes, what did I say?
Parking deck.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's a good start, isn't it? So much for the word expert, right? Out the window. Okay. The numbers that we're talking about, the site itself has 684 parking spaces total on the site right now, including some spaces for ADA purposes. Basically, according to the study that you had before, and Lynn has already covered this, the gross numbers work. You do have enough space to put the displaced spaces in other places on the campus. The real question was, how do you do that in a way that really works? And that's where this presentation is moving. Yes, ma'am?
What is the ratio of the 684? How many of those are students and how many of those are staff?
I think that's going to come up in the following slide. I don't have it memorized. I think there's 414 student spaces that are coming out there. There's 248 staff. It's right. That's, you'll see if that's correct or not. Let's touch on the cost of the deck for just a second. As you can see on there, we did a computation based on the probable cost of building a deck and all the soft costs and operating costs that are involved in that. And what it does is it pushes the full-time student rate up to about $523 a year. Faculty staff to $387, and the equivalent of gated lots would be at $506. That's a pretty substantial increase. So that's what they're trying to avoid in coming up with a solution that will allow you to move forward without having to build a deck. Well, here are the numbers, and I think that was correct. Faculty staff gated areas is 248. There are 21 ADA spaces, 414 students. So we're dealing with a total of 684 spaces that have to be replaced somewhere on the campus. Looking at, here's the first step. The first step is, do we have the numbers? Can we fit these, or replace these spaces somewhere else on campus? The second question is, how do you do that? So we'll be answering both of those questions. On the west side of campus, in lots 20 and 21, based on the previous study, there were 111 spaces in lot 20, 214 spaces in lot 22 that were vacant at the peak. And we've done some checking. We did some checking yesterday, and those numbers are pretty close. We understand from talking with staff that yesterday may have been down a little bit from what you all have been experiencing. When we drove into lot, John, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 22 yesterday. We initially drove in and said, ooh, this is full. But when we actually went around and counted, we had 179 open spaces. So it's pretty close to what they found before. But according to what Helen told us about what they've been seeing, Tuesdays and Thursdays are up a little bit. So we're going to be looking at it further to make sure that the numbers that we're working with are correct. But they're fairly close. On the east side of campus, the previous study found 533 spaces available to utilize. So those are the numbers we basically have to work with. The proposal is to take lot 8 and convert it to a faculty, with a few exceptions, to faculty and staff parking. That provides the bulk of the faculty staff parking up close to where it is provided now, allows the faculty and staff to efficiently get back and forth where they need to in the academic core. So we moved the 248 faculty staff into the lot. The students are totally displaced. We'll have to deal with those now. So we have some students that will have to go elsewhere. There are currently 111 faculty staff spaces there now. So we added the 248. Yes, ma'am?
Excuse me, could you tell us where lot 8 is?
Let me back up. Sorry. Right here. There's the core. There's where the new Performing Arts Center is going, and that lot 8 is right there. The police is right by the police station. You know what the police station is? Okay. And please, feel free to answer questions as we go through. I hate for someone to have a question and then not even follow along until the question is answered. This man.
Is that going to be considered a gated lot?
It will not be gated initially, and I'll give you some reasons for that in just a moment. Well, let me back up. Why don't we do it right now? Okay. One of the concerns that we have is the numbers sometimes are not very difficult. But I'm come from an operational background. I ran the Atlanta Airport parking, Denver Airport parking, and downtown parking in different cities. I think in terms of flow, the dynamics, what happens every day, and I visualize what's going to be taking place. Queuing, traffic jams, people trying to get in and out, people getting in there, not finding space, turning around and going someplace else. All of those things go through the analysis process. So we're looking at that lot and saying, what's going to happen? Well, number one, students will not be allowed to park there. And there'll be some significant amount of increased enforcement as the program is implemented to make sure that everyone understands, and there's going to be someone down there to help protect those spaces without a gate until everyone understands how the system works and they get into their new habits. But there isn't much queuing area. In order to develop good queuing in that lot, you'd have to push the entrance way down into the lot to provide internal queuing, then put the gate, and you lose an awful lot of space in order to do that. You really don't have a lot of queuing area back to the intersection, and there's going to be construction going on. So our objective was get free flow into that lot. And not only that, we went one step beyond and said, you have some problems with the lot as it stands. You have dead ends. And you can't afford to have dead ends. We see some head shaking. Dead ends are really frustrating, particularly if there's a lot of pressure on the lot. So we're going to eliminate the dead ends. We're going to lose about 24 spaces by doing so. We're going to move the ADA out of there, so we gain back about 3 spaces. So the end result is, and let me move back up to the slide here. We'll have the 249 faculty staff spaces, 48 visitor spaces, which they said we really do need there. 15 carpool or van pool spaces. That's the first step towards encouraging people to use van pooling and carpooling. It's a great, very low cost initiative to do. Just make it convenient for them to park there, and they'll start van pooling and carpooling. And the public safety, 11 spaces will stay in the back of the lot. Yes, ma'am.
Currently, I haven't parked up there often, but currently, I don't remember a good way to walk from that lot down the hill to campus, to the core of the campus.
From lot 8?
From lot 8, yeah.
How do you do that from where you park now?
I go right across the street because I'm in the administration building and I park in lot 10. So, but I've been up there, and I believe I've been up there to park, and I can't remember why. And I wanted to come down to campus. Maybe I was going to something at the Fine Arts Building. And it seemed like, and this has been a while, but there was a lot, and I don't think there was a sidewalk next to the lot at the top of the hill. And I don't know that there was a connection to behind the current Fine Arts, or if there was. It was like a pathway.
And I'm looking over this direction. I know they're looking at some of the wayfinding issues, which we have not looked at, by the way, at this point. And this is just kind of the first phase. But from our perspective, what we're looking at is we're looking at people who are parking currently in 9 and 16.
Okay.
We're moving them just across the street. So any problems they'll have at the new lot, they're currently having with where they're parking now.
There are walkways on lot 9 and 16 side. There are none over by 8.
Going to-
Plus, they didn't clear the snow yesterday.
Okay, noted. So what
pathway is a
And
very
we
steep
opened on
grade
time.
as well.
coming down from 8?
Coming down from, it's a steep grade, it's part of the
Well, I'm here.
So there's a concern about there's a steep grade coming down from 8. All right.
8 is not at the same level as 16 and 9.
Yes.
That's in the steep, yeah, that's the problem.
Yes.
And there's no sidewalk or staircase to get you down.
Okay, it is all just
Yes.
inclines.
And if you go up there, you'll find there are a lot of students walking through, across the road, in the road.
In the room.
And they're walking in the road because?
There's no sidewalks.
It's all one side.
So we solved the numbers problem, and we're still facing some logistical problems in terms of how to get from A to B. But the main issue is, that's the closest we could get faculty and staff to that location. I mean, there are no other alternatives to getting faculty and staff as close to that core as they are now. It's the best location possible. So you're getting the preferred location. Yes, ma'am?
What did you do with the 22 ADA spaces?
We're working on that. That is a challenge, trying to find a place to put those. And we're looking at different alternatives of how to accommodate that. That is a concern. We haven't come up with a solution for that yet.
So that could be a problem this summer.
Well, hopefully not, because we'll be working on this.
Okay.
We're just starting, really, just gotten into the project. By the way, just to let you all know, this is kind of an early phase in our broader project. We're looking at long-term plans for the campus. So this was just a quick focus at the beginning of the project. We need to get some answers quickly on this particular area. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate being moved to Lot 8. I understand where the building's going, and Lot 8 seems to be the reasonable solution. However, in doing that, don't you think including getting us safely to our building should be included as well?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, we do think so,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's
So that's a really important feedback from this
Lot
meeting.
16
Absolutely.
in this bad weather is treacherous.
We need to
because
figure
it's
it
not
out.
clean.
Now
And
it's not.
icy.
It's
Yes.
icy.
So we come down that hill in the ice, somebody's going to fall and break a leg.
Yes.
Or
What
worse.
about the people that are going to be employed in the new building? Where are they going to park?
We're not hiring a big number of people.
But it,
People shifting from where they're already.
so they'll be shifting to that
Lot 8.
to Lot 8.
They're out of fine, most of them, I think, are out of the Fine Arts Building. Right. So they will already have been parking in 9 and 16.
And let me just say,
Mostly.
sorry.
That's okay.
Let me just say now, we are still refining numbers. This is a quick look, is there a solution? And it appears that there is a solution, there's a pretty good solution, but we're still looking at the numbers. Like between this presentation and this afternoon's presentation, John and I will be going out and looking again at how full those lots are to make sure that the available space that we're counting on is actually there. So there'll be some continual refinement, and not only that, ongoing monitoring of what's happening as those changes are implemented to make sure that the expected numbers are correct and there weren't bad assumptions.
Are you accounting for the staff that currently park in 8 in the back half? That's still being
Yes.
there? Or
Yes.
So we are
This is
able
a-
to accommodate
right.
existing and all the new movement?
We're moving the students out in order to accommodate the movement of the faculty staff up to that lot. So there'll be no students in that lot. Okay.
Lot 16 has several handicap spaces. Where are the handicap?
That came up just a moment ago. We don't have a solution for that yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that is a significant concern.
Anecdotally, the first week or so of classes, your numbers aren't going to work. 100% of the students bring their cars and stay here all day. They're going to have to be some sort of plan to find a place for them for that first week, because we are going to be more than 100% of parking probably.
And I'll tell you what the normal approach is, most universities, and I would say all, but that would be overstepping a bit. The first couple of weeks, they just grit their teeth, and people get pushed out, and there's some inconvenience for the students in particular the first couple of weeks, until they figure out the class schedule. They figure out, well, I don't have to stay the whole time. I can actually go back, and things settle down. And we almost never, except to just know what that differential is, we never plan or design based on that first 2 week or 3 week period. We generally wait till after the drop-out date. Then you get your class schedules down to normal. People are into their habits, and we understand what they're going to do. Because, in particular, if you start talking about building $20,000 space, parking decks in order to solve that temporary problem.
Couldn't you have like a billboard, electronic billboards at certain locations that tell them what lots that they could park in? When it's like, especially the first couple of weeks of school, like telling them go to lot, say, I don't know, 25 or wherever it is, that this, you know, certain lots are,
Could, certainly could.
and that way, if you had it up by the red light where they come in, they could see, oh, well, I gotta go here.
Let me back up a second and tell you the purpose of what we're doing right now and today, what this presentation is. We've really only attacked the numbers problem and how to make this number situation work. All the logistics, signage, communication, flow, those type of things, it's not on our plate at this point. That will come as you look toward implementation, implementing those changes. And we'll be engaged at some level, whatever level they instruct us to get engaged in that process. So you're asking questions that will need to be addressed right down the line. But really what we're addressing today is, do we have enough space? And if the answer is yes, where is it? And the other answer is, who's going to park where? That's what we're really addressing today.
One of the things that happens immediately in lot 16 is in the area of ADA parking, there's a sort of kiss and drop off section of people looping in and dropping off a spouse or a student or so forth. Where will that happen now when that lot is removed?
Don't have an answer. Don't have an answer. That's a detail that we haven't got to that level yet.
Over here?
And by the way, I'm not going to tell you anything that isn't so. If we haven't looked at it, I'm going to tell you we haven't looked at it. I'm not going to try to cross over.
I've got a question about behavior. You were talking about the
Let
parking
me ask
behavior.
you, can I time out for just a second?
Mhm.
Would you mind if I finish it's not very long, and just go through the rest of the
Okay,
slides? At
I
least
was
you'll
just
know
trying to
that,
tackle
because we might
it.
answer a lot of questions that are going to come up, and then we'll get right back to it. But I told you to ask questions, and that's what you're doing. Well, I take that back for just a moment. All right, I forgot, this is the staff meeting, isn't it? I forgot who I was in. Okay, so now we've taken care of, with the exception of some interesting and certainly challenging logistical problems and connectivity problems, we've taken care of the faculty and staff who are displaced out of the 2 lots that are going away. But now we have 323 student spaces that have been taken out of the system at that point. We have to find somewhere else for those students to park. Well, we do have enough space in lots 20 and 22 that is student parking, realizing that part of that is really assigned to specific residential buildings, but the numbers are there. So we have enough capacity over there to accommodate those. Flip forward here. We have 414 students that we have to deal with. Part of them are parking currently in lot 8. They will be moving. The other ones are the ones that are parking in 9. And they'll be moving 9 or 16. 9, correct? 9 and 16. Okay. By the way, John did all the work. I get to do the presentation. It's not really fair, but that's kind of the way we do it sometimes. So we actually have a surplus of about 119 spaces left after that move takes place, based on the numbers that were done in that study, which we're still trying to confirm. So the numbers work, but we have space up in those lots. Let me back up for just a second. The lot here behind the Walker Apartments is where a lot of that space is located, and there's some over here. Well, these folks, because it's a lot more convenient to park along here, that's where they're parking. So we're going to have to look at some changes in the policies in terms of where they can park, so that they actually go back and use the space that's assigned to them and was built for them, so that we free up some of the space on the front side for commuters and other residents. So some of this is moving toward, particularly on the student side, not so much on the faculty and staff side, but more so on the student side, toward perhaps changing the way of regulating where they can park and actually assigning residential parking areas. But we did find yesterday as we drove around, and it's interesting when you do things during the snow, you can tell when the cars have moved or not, because if they're plowed behind and there's no tire tracks, then they didn't move. Most of the students that are parked up in that residential area don't move their cars. We check it through the day. I see some shaking of heads. That is a really good thing, because one of the problems we face in a lot of universities is the fact that they park in the residence area, then they drive to class. So you're providing 2 spaces for them. So as a management factor, we have to stop that and get them parking in the residential area, staying there all day, and not using up what we call commuter space. So what we're going to probably have to do is to restrict the Walker housing folks to their lot. The unfortunate thing is that we have more permits sold to those students than we have spaces to accommodate them in their own lot. So we will have to give them privileges on Hilltop Circle to some extent. Now the other thing is that we are not sure how many faculty and staff, we're doing some checks now to be sure, are parking on Hilltop Circle. And if they've got a map, somewhere we have a map. because of the academic core being here, of course, I'm sure there was faculty, staff parking along here, and I think the number that we came up with some surveys that were done by the parking department, 130 or so that were parking in that area. 140. So when these changes take place, there's going to be some heavy competition for those spaces, which are now available to anyone. So we recognize that. So we're trying to get a good handle on the number of faculty, staff, cars that are parked along Hilltop Circle, and the chances are we're going to have a designated area along there for faculty, staff parking in order to make the numbers work. So we're trying to not leave any of the stones unturned when we go through the process. We've already talked about the gate control. Obviously, we're going to look at shuttle support for the outlying lots. If it looks like the students really do need shuttle support from those outlying lots to get into the campus core, we'll do it. But students tend to, if they can see where they're going, they just go. They don't like waiting for the buses unless the buses are very, very frequent, and that's very expensive to do. But the administration is looking at whether additional shuttle service would be appropriate for this program. It is, Lynn pointed out earlier, there's also going to be an increased emphasis on TDM, trying to get people to not drive their car by themselves every day and do some carpooling and so forth, and that'll follow really the latter part of the study.
What is TDM?
I'm sorry, transportation demand management, which are all the things you can do, carpooling, ride sharing, and so forth, to get people not to drive single occupancy vehicles. Reduce parking. Sir?
No.
That's one of them, yes. That's it. So now, back over to the questions. Yes.
I had a question, when you were talking about the behaviors of individuals, how did you determine that 12 to 1 is the peak time? When that's, I would think that would be a time when there's a lot of people moving away from campus, especially staff and students that transition between those taking morning classes and those who are coming back on campus for afternoon classes.
Very consistently, when we do surveys at campuses across the country, that's the pattern. Now, we did not do that survey, but we saw the results, and it's exactly what we would expect.
It was based on actual occupied spaces.
Right, but 12. Okay.
Yes, and what happens is they come in and they have early morning. We've done a lot of different analysis. We've looked at class schedules, actually built them into a model to predict the number of cars based on class schedule. But then you have the unpredictable factor of if they have an 11 o'clock class and a 1 o'clock class, do they stay or do they go and come back? So we really, those are the type of things. And so that's why actual field car counts, looking at the empty spaces hour by hour through the course of the day over a period of time, and we've done it at many, many universities, lots of days within those universities. It's a very typical pattern that noon is the peak.
That's actually a little bit surprising. I've been a student here too, by the way. So, I mean, yeah, I'm
Yes,
thinking
that's right. Not being a parking expert, I can understand.
Right.
But that's what we found.
Okay. And then the next question is, if we're trying to move, and this, I don't know a lot about this, but the idea of changing when we offer classes, the times we offer classes, what's going to be the impact if we want to do more teaching, for example, in earlier hours? I know there's been an effort, to get more of that. Has any of that been considered?
We have not looked at that yet, no. That is an issue that would probably be looking at that more so in the large study, long-term study. We've had some universities we actually developed the entire program, and right before we finished the project, they said, well, we have decided to go to a 4-day class week, and all of the planning went out the window. We started almost back over again because it's a very expensive decision. And I think they have gone back to the 5-day.
So
I'm sorry, there was somebody in the back that I skipped over because I wasn't looking. There's two folks here. Yes, ma'am.
You said, up on your picture, you said 48 visitor spaces in the lot that you're moving us to.
Yes.
We don't have that many now in 16, so why would you put so many there?
That is the real answer is that's a default number. When we moved the numbers we needed to move, we had 48 left over when we pulled out the carpool spaces. So we said, and someone said, we need visitor spaces there. I said, well, we have 48 spares. So we either make 48 student spaces, which we don't want to do, and have them fighting for those 48 spaces, or we have some flex space. So I think actually, if you read one of the texts that I skipped over, it said that those 48 spaces were flexible based on what we need. So that's a little bit of a cushion we have to manage that lot. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question about the east side of the campus and the lots. I think there were like 13, 17 or so. And one of these lots is really underutilized. It's the one by shipping and receiving. But I believe it's right now assigned to students or maybe students and faculty, but not to staff. So as somebody who parks on the loop right now, if I leave in the middle of the day, I basically have no chance to come back around lunchtime and park on the loop, and I park in the overflow down Poplar Drive, and I drive by this parking lot that's really, really empty, but I can park in it because I'm not a student. Are there any plans to turn that into more of a mixed use and overflow parking lot? Because students don't like to park there either. They'll take the loop before they park into that parking lot because it's further away, which pushes us even further away while it sits
You're
there.
leapfrogging for available space.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at, by the way, we didn't do what we said we did with the recorder. I'm hoping it's picking up all of these questions, and I'm not sure. Is it? Let me, we're getting a lot of very valuable input here, and I think we picked up most of it, but I want to make sure. This will become your microphone. It's a digital recorder, so when you're ready to speak, we'll pass it along to you. You want to repeat your issue, and we'll pass it along.
Oh, okay.
And Janet, do you want to be the mic walker down here?
Okay, my suggestion was to let faculty and staff park in, and I don't know which lot that is, but it's the one by shipping and receiving.
It's 17.
It's really big. I think it's 17, which I think is currently students only, and it's really, really underutilized. And unless you somehow make students park there, they will, default parking on the loop, whereas the rest of us will be parking really, really far away while this lot sits empty. So maybe opening it up for everybody would make that easier.
All right, fine. Let's see, there was a question over here. Yes, sir.
We can also make the video available to you, which is being recorded.
If you just repeat the question, if you will just repeat the question.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Listen,
It right now.
I'll
So-
condense
so-
it down, but make sure that I get it correct.
So my question is, as Lot 8 is converted to faculty and staff, we said there's not going to be a gate. Are there plans to oversubscribe the hangars to that lot? Because in terms of us, we have some staff that often have to, in terms of IT, come and go at different hours. We have to leave to go to other buildings and use our own vehicles. And it happens quite frequently. But coming back, I wanted to make sure whether there's going to be enough spaces. I get why we don't have a gate because of traffic flow. But there's a question of whether it's going to be oversubscribed. If there's 400-something slots, but you issue 600 hangars, guesstimating that everybody's going to come and go, I just wanted to know how that's going to be worked out.
The answer is yes. To the first question, the primary question, are you going to sell more permits in that lot than you have physical number of spaces? The answer is yes, and that's the responsible and proper thing to do. But it has to be managed to the point that you do have a cushioned space. If, in fact, it's oversold to the point that you come back and can't find a space and everyone in there that's in that lot are legitimately assigned people to that lot, then the number of permits has to be pulled back. So that is a close management process that has to take place so that you oversell it, because if you don't, you'll have a lot of space sitting there empty a lot of the time. If it's a permit, one permit for one space, then you have individually reserved spaces. You might as well put your names on them, and that's the worst thing that you can do.
So part two of that question is, since it's not going to be gated, I assume the price is going to go down for what I hang now, what I pay now per a gated lot?
The answer is yes. I just wanted to confirm that nothing's changed since our last conversation. The answer is yes.
So since it's not gated, anybody with a faculty staff hangar is going to be able to park there.
No, I believe it's going to be assigned to folks.
They're not assigned now. So actually, people that are parking in other parking lots that are faculty staff that are further away, when they find out this lot is closer, they're going to shift. And have they thought about anything as far as making some of the loop faculty staff only?
Yes, I just mentioned this a moment ago. That in fact we know some faculty staff are parking on the loop. So we're going to have to designate some of the loop as faculty staff parking. We'll have to talk about the assignment.
Yeah, because now unless you have a gate card, even though I do have a gate card, I can still park anywhere on campus. So if I decide to park on the street because that's clear and the lot wasn't, I can park on the loop.
Right.
But the rest of us cannot park in your spot even if we're willing to walk on ice.
Absolutely. Yes. Or if I can't get into my lot because it wasn't cleared because of snow.
So we have to arrange that there's no snow.
Good idea.
Well, but part of certain lots are closed because of snow. I mean, lot 10, part of lot 10 is closed. Nancy will tell you, part of lot 10 is closed because of snow when it snows. So that eliminates like 30 or 40 parking spaces. Unless you're under the deck, we don't, you know, there's the additional parking there is going.
Obviously, I'm not going to have answers for all these questions, but it's part of the reason we're having the meetings, because there are things that come up that are personal experiences, things that you experience every day, that there's no way that I can anticipate, and in fact, some of the staff may not know about. So it is good to get this out, even if I don't have answers for it. Yes, ma'am.
Now, in regards to the shuttle service, it kind of sounded like that was poo-poo. Now, the shuttle service, and for also faculty and staff, can be incorporated with the shuttle service that we already have. There's already designated bus stops. As long as we can just hop on one of the things that just happens to be going past, I still think that would be a help with people thinking, well, I've got to park so far away, but if they can get a ride to a closer area, I think it would be.
So you're thinking that a additional shuttle service or better shuttle support would be a benefit. And if I gave you the impression that that idea had been poo-pooed, as you said, that's incorrect. No, it is on the table very much to be looking at whether it'd be worthwhile to do that and how the service may be enhanced in order to accommodate it. And a lot of issues have to be looked at there in terms of bidirectional service, for example. If it takes you 5 minutes to get from point A to point B, but because you don't have a return bus coming that same route instead of having to go around the loop, you won't do that because it takes you so long to get back to point A. So there are a lot of logistical issues that have to be examined to see how much investment it'll take to really make that service work and be a real benefit, other than just throwing some rolling stock out there and expecting that to solve the problem. It really has to be a system that'll work. Yes, sir.
Just more of a comment than a question, but in talking about efficiency, I understand why you don't want Lot 8 to be gated. That makes good sense, but we lose a lot of efficiency if we don't sort of look at how we assign parking spaces, because of what Gina was saying, where any faculty and staff member can then park in that lot. Since you're basically moving what's currently gated space over to that lot, but not really adding any additional faculty and staff spaces, if everybody can just kind of park there, you have a lot of potential for faculty and staff having to then try to find spaces all around the campus where you're trying to make that space available for the people that are in this end. So.
My first reaction, and I'm speaking for myself, and I don't run the university. If in fact we designated those spaces at Lot 8 and said that you have a special permit for Lot 8, that would be a more expensive permit. It would necessarily have to be. Yeah, right. So that I'm just putting that back on the table. In the management of the system, you have to have some way of governing what's there. If you don't, then you have to have a large, complicated pecking order of who gets first priority of getting the space. So from a practical standpoint, the way to manage the demand on the lot is by pricing. That's the short answer. Way in the back again. Sir.
I want to bring back this issue of the garage, the deck. You said that it is expensive, that's why it was dropped out of the table. What if we want to do it and pay for it?
A faculty staff deck.
Yes.
And if in fact the faculty said we want that to be reconsidered, I don't know that the administration will be having any problem with looking at it, but understanding that the cost burden would fall back on the users. And the university would have to have confidence that there was enough demand and commitment that they wouldn't build a deck with the faculty and staff saying, build the deck, we'll pay for it, we'll park there, and then suddenly there are no subscriptions to those higher priced permits that are required in order to pay for that deck. The numbers you saw up there, that 500 and so forth, that's if the cost is spread over everyone. I'll tell you what the approximate cost is. If you build a deck and you pay for it on a monthly basis, 12 months a year, it's going to be about $150 a month. Give or take a little bit, maybe a little bit more based on the cost of building this deck. So if you have enough faculty and staff that say we're willing to pay $150, $160 a month for that deck, then it would be something that would be reasonably back on the table.
I think maybe we should be asked. We do not say no.
I think there was a hand over here that
And that would be in
bypassed.
addition to, excuse me, in addition to what they're already paying, the 150?
I can't answer that. The reason is because you'd have to look at the whole structure, how it's done, and how this university allocates the funds and so forth. So I don't know how to answer that. If this was a commercial operation, I'd be able to answer it very quickly. Hang on just a second. Yes, sir.
I want to go back to something you said about the universities that had decided to go to a 4-day schedule versus a 5-day schedule, and that made you start from scratch. We have, for a number of years, been talking about course scheduling guidelines. There have not always been compliance with those. I've heard even, suggestions of a hybrid Friday. At what point do you need to know in your planning where the university's going with scheduling so that we don't go back to scratch? Because if we're looking at efficiency, sustainability issues, I mean, this seems like a pretty core.
It does, and in my mind, the most logical direction that we could go would be to spread courses out more evenly across the day and across the week. And if that happens, then that relieves pressure on parking. It doesn't increase pressure on parking.
Is that the case that you have found for the mornings? Because if you're having more classes in the morning than you had before, I'm just asking the parking consultant to confirm that's the direction that would have the impact.
We would need to know those plans, and in fact, if the university is considering going to a reduced weekday schedule.
Not reduced, we're all concentrated. You're seeing part of the demand at midday because that's where we're scheduling our classes.
Right.
We're not scheduling enough classes in the morning and evenings, and we're virtually not.
Oh,
doing
you're
it
talking
on
about
Friday.
pushing down
Yes.
the curve.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we will look at the changes, any changes in class schedule that's going to impact that curve we'll look at. But again, some of those changes are not one-for-one changes because you change this class schedule, but the car stays there. So your building yields will change. You can even that curve out. And that's a tough one in terms of an analysis to figure out what if you change your yields in your building and spread them more uniformly across the available classroom hours, what impact does that have on the actual peak auto demand on campus? It's not a one-for-one. I think, yes, ma'am, you're trying to get it kind of in order here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, when there's going to be events at the new Fine Arts Building, where will those visitors park?
We haven't addressed that yet. This process was to address the faculty and staff and students.
I just wondered if we were going to be moved.
Oh, when the event takes place.
Yes.
Okay. We haven't discussed that yet. Yes, ma'am.
I am not a parking, I'm sorry, did you call me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not a parking expert, but it occurs to me, we have all these students who are parking overnight, and I drove around the loop the other day looking for a place to park. Can't we move the students who have cars to the outer lots, and they can park closer to the buildings in the evenings and on the weekends so that it's free for us to park closer to where we work? Have you addressed that or looked at that?
We will be looking at that through the course of the study in terms of managing what you have beyond looking at this immediate move related to the Performing Arts Center. All universities are looking at the quality of life for the students, and one of the biggest, well, a number of universities have done this and said, okay, freshmen off campus and all kinds of restrictions. And it had a significant impact on the students. And a lot of those universities have started to draw back now and say, we really probably overdid it, and we're putting a burden on those students that really shouldn't be there. So in consideration of quality of life issues, recognizing the students do have a life, that move has abated a bit and come back.
I understand
So,
that, but I understand that. I don't mean to interrupt you. I have a life too, and when I have to come to campus and spend 30 minutes looking for a parking space, I mean, I've got kids, I've got a husband, a house, I've got stuff that I do outside of school. I don't mind paying for a parking space here, but there should be a place for me to park within 5 minutes of my driving onto campus. I anticipate having traffic getting here, but I'm paying for a parking space. I should be able to find a place to park so I can get to my office on time. And the other thing that upsets me
well,
is...
can I time out for a second?
Okay.
The objective is to solve that problem without kicking the students off campus.
I don't want to kick the
students
Okay,
on campus.
so that's the real
We
answer.
have all these parking lots that are still on campus that are further away, and I'm not sure how many of the students are actually using their cars during the day, during the week. Couldn't they be parking in those outer lots so that the loop and places closer to campus are available for faculty and staff, since I come and go every day?
We'll be looking at that in the long-term plan.
And then my other concern is when it snows and it gets really bad, it's even worse trying to find parking then. And I don't know who's here that does this. Whoever opens campus, please don't open campus if there's not a place for me to park. If I fall, I am going to break something. So please don't have the walkways covered in ice and make it treacherous for me to get to work. The other time, on December, the Monday when we had the exams and campus was open, I was so upset. I parked illegally to be able to go to work because I could not find a safe place to park where I could get across campus without falling and breaking my neck. And I'm not upset with you, it's not your fault. I'm just saying, I don't even know who it is who makes the decision. It's going to get worse with parking if it snows next year. So please.
Back in the corner is next.
Yes. Please factor into your decisions about gating lots or not gating lots that some of the people who are the lowest paid on campus are part-time staff and adjunct faculty. A significant number of the people who come to campus each day are adjunct faculty. They're paid about $2,000 to teach a course. So if lots are gated, where they now park, like Lot 8, they won't be able to afford to park there. And late at night, when they leave their classes, they'll be the most vulnerable for whatever difficulties they may suffer.
And students.
Is lighting going to be addressed?
I'm sorry.
Lighting.
I passed this gentleman here several times.
I have one question in regard to UMBC Boulevard. It acts now as a pressure release valve for parking on the loop, and that's because it's close to the academic core. Students park all the way out to the silo and beyond to 195, and there's no pedestrian walkway there, and it's dangerous and untenable to weave through those students at night, especially at dusk. Is there any plan for mediating that spaces?
And I don't know the answer to that, but it's on the record. Others over here, yes.
Apart from the paying for parking, which is a whole other argument, I don't get you were saying it would cost more to restrict Lot 8 to specific people. What I don't understand is why we can't say Lot 8 is close to buildings X, Y, and Z. If your office is in X, Y, and Z, that's where we designate you park so that I know that there's a parking spot that's going to be there for me and I'm not going to have to worry about it. I don't see how that's more expensive. It just takes a little bit of, where's your office? Okay, then that's the lot that you should really be parking at. We do that now with the gated lot. I mean, conceptually, people that park in the gated lot at 16, our offices are mostly in engineering and ITE, fine arts, and a couple other that are closer to the lot. People that work in the physics building more than likely don't park in lot 16. But if we don't, I don't see where to me it's a disconnect why there would be more expense in running that kind of check and making people say, okay, your yellow, right now my permit actually says on it what lot I'm allowed to park in. Why wouldn't it say Lot 8 on my faculty staff permit if I'm working in the designated area where the people in Lot 8 would park?
And that being the only place that you're permitted to park.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That way you eliminate people who are parking on the loop that shouldn't be parking on the loop.
I mean, and to just throw another voice in on too, the snow, I mean, even apart from the snow, because it only snows X amount of days a year, which yes, that is a pain in the rear end to come in and have to, risk life and limb occasionally. But apart from that, it also rains, it's cold, it gets dark. There's a lot of things involved with trudging up the hill.
We're carrying
and parking.
laptops, we're carrying other stuff.
Mike already mentioned going out, when we have in and out during the day, which does happen on quite a few occasions. And I'm not trying to, that's not your fault, it's not like you made any of these decisions, but on the other hand, I just want it to be out there, something that people, and these things need to be taken into account, because it is going to make, there's going to be more walking to your spot in the middle of the night, because I'm an on-call staff member. I can come in sometimes at 2 in the morning, or I might be here late, and if I'm here late, I want to walk up that hill. Maybe it's raining, maybe it's not, maybe it's snowing, maybe I'm a little afraid because there's nobody else in the lot.
And you're not a woman.
Here at 2 in the morning. Well, yeah, it's true, and I'm not a woman. So it just, the security aspect too is slightly concerning in that respect. So just a couple things there.
I'm answering some of these a little bit prematurely because we have, again, we were given a very targeted problem to address, and we really are just starting the study itself. This is kind of a blanket statement that's not, you could probably argue that's not true here or there. But in my experience at universities where you're able to actually have the parking capacity and assign it and say, well, this will all fit close by and so forth, and these folks can park close to their place, it all works out, are the ones that don't need us because they don't have a parking problem to start with. It's generally on most universities, particularly if they're growing, the simple thing of saying, well, just assign it based on proximity to the workplace, it almost never works. Somebody's being left out. Somebody's pushed out someplace else. So the normal course of events is that the university says, well, we will use some form of pricing to help govern that. So those who really feel it's more important to save a few dollars than to have the convenience of doing that may to choose to park in a little farther out. Unless you can put parking right next to your workplace, that's not a really good solvable problem, and that's just the reality. And I don't know the numbers, so I can't speak to this particular situation, but that's the general situation. If it'll work, it's not a problem to start with.
So couldn't it just be a self-maintained solution? I say that I want, as a faculty staff member, I know there are 5 lots. And those 5 lots, one of those is closest to where I'm going to be most of the time.
And you're probably going to have a lot of people competing with you for that lot. And you get down to who gets first priority, and you have to build in. I do this.
Well, we do that now. We do that with the gated lot now. I mean, it's not like this hasn't been. So I'm just saying, we already do it. Like when I decided to work at UMBC, it wasn't like I was given the gated lot access from day one. I had to go on a list. I had to wait until the spot arrived. And existing staff that are here when the transition happens would go to lot 8. And new ones came in, maybe they would have to go elsewhere and they would have the list the same. I don't see how that's not a workable solution.
Okay. That's still under discussion as far as
I'm just throwing it down there.
Let's see. You've had your shot a couple times, so let me get the folks over here and ask anything. Yes. Front.
What is the time frame of your study? Because we keep hearing that you're just starting, but the concern and all the murmuring I'm hearing is this is happening in 3 months.
Yes.
So the question is about things like security for lot 8 and the lighting. When is that?
Some of that is likely not even to fall into our study at all. And we haven't negotiated exactly what the scope is going to be for our study. So we're going to be talking about what do they really need our help in the most, what are the areas that they're looking at already, and some areas perhaps that would have come up as a result of what's happening here, and the discussions we'll have over all 4 of the forums. Yes?
Also want to remind some comments to
Oh,
the
yes.
blog.
Yes, thanks, John. So if you have comments, but I'll pause a second, make sure that you send them into the blog. It's been set up for a dialogue to go back and forth. So if you have some other ideas, suggestions, or concerns, put them up there. So we're going to be talking about where they need our help. And then we'll set up a scope for our actual next phase of the study, which would happen fairly quickly.
Are these presentations going to be made available so we can look at them in more detail?
I think so. Yes, they'll be on the blog.
Excuse me, I just have one quick question.
Yes.
And I may have had a misunderstanding about this, but several years ago, our parking fees did go up. And the reason why they said they went up was because we were going to build the new parking lot when the building was, the new fine arts building. Now, where did that money go to? That's what I guess or maybe maybe that money was channeled somewhere else.
Do you want to address that? Or
Yeah, I'm sure I'd be happy to address that. What we had said at the time was that we would have to increase the parking fees by, I think it was a $30 increase. I think my recollection is right on that. And it hadn't been increased for several years before then. And we were going to have to build up the parking fee substantially more than that if we were going to build a deck. And so what we're going to spend the money on instead is these improvements to make the existing parking more efficient so that we don't have to add $150 to your parking fee. Well, no, it won't take 6 years, which is what the building is going to take, but unanimously across the groups that we talked to, there was strong support for not raising those fees, not building a deck, because we have existing parking on campus. Not as convenient as we'd like it to be, absolutely, I acknowledge that. It's not going to be as good a situation as we have today, because people will have to probably go further from their parking spaces. But it is available, and it means that we don't have to add a huge amount to the parking fees, not only for faculty and staff, but also for our students.
And then just to add on to that, just because you build a parking deck doesn't necessarily mean that it's more convenient. Where's the parking deck going to go?
But at least it's a parking space.
Could be, yes, it could be a capacity issue. If capacity continues to grow.
I would pay $150 if I can guarantee that I have a parking space. And I think that's the frustrating part, is that even, I mean, you have a gated lot, doesn't guarantee you a parking space either. So.
Because they overstock.
Right.
There are parking spaces right now if you're willing to walk far enough. And I don't
We
want to
can
have
do
to
that
pay
if
the
I'm
cost of a
paying-
garage if I won't be parking there anyway.
Right,
because
not if
just a
I'm paying in
spot.
a gated lot.
Yeah.
Already.
The lady in the back.
Just a general observation. We always start with speaking to the leaders, and then we come out a couple years later and talk to the entire people, and we seem surprised that the majority of the people are upset. You know, once you already started putting things into place.
No, when we start planning and looking forward and then introducing this preliminarily, looking at the solution and presenting it to the groups to see what kind of feedback we do get. Let me ask you a question. How many people here will be willing to pay $150? Now let's be real. Let's say $160 a month. Every day, 12-month basis to park in a deck. A month.
A month. Yes.
That's the cost of the deck. How many would be willing to pay that in this room?
If I can get guaranteed a parking space, I would. I mean, I've worked in downtown Annapolis where you spend.
To another, I was just going to ask that you keep that in mind as you go to the next step, that, you know, if you look at Lot 8, and this may address Tim's question too, in terms of how far it is in walking time from each building, as opposed to the lots down by physical plant, I think it'll be pretty obvious why some of those lots are underutilized.
Yeah.
If you can make, or if it's possible, if anyone can make it easier to get from, say, physical plant up here in a short time. You're coming in the morning, there's a lot of cars, a lot of traffic, you're in a hurry. You've got to get here fast. But if you park down by physical plant in the rain,
I'll be happy to park there because since it's assigned to student, I have to park along Poplar Avenue at the very, very end, which is even further. And if that was a mixed-use parking lot, even though I don't have my favorite parking space, and I park on the loop all the time, I don't have the fancy, you know, gated lot parking spaces. And I don't mind walking. I walk around the loop, so I know what the loop situation looks like just about on a regular basis for the past 3 years, regardless of the season. That's why I kind of laugh when you show the pictures of empty parking lots, because I think that was in the summer. I'm sorry.
Yes, that was a low picture. Everyone realizes that, yes.
I'd be happy to at least know where I'm parking and how much time to allocate for my doctor's appointment, so I know I can come back and have parking space. If it's a 15-minute walk, it's a 15-minute walk, but I know it's 15 minutes and not half an hour, you know?
And it looks like we're losing part of our group.
I just wanted to say, if you're, you know, if you're walking from down physical plant up to these buildings in the rain, carrying stuff, it's a very long walk.
I work in admin building, so yeah, I know that.
When I'm looking at, well, if you think about our job, when we start, our starting point is to look at an aerial view of the campus, literally, and then from ground level, where is the empty space? Well, the empty space is where it is for a reason.
Yes.
Because there are pedestrian obstructions, it's not a good proximity where the main is.
What I'm suggesting is we need, since we really don't have a whole lot of choices here, we need to address the reason.
And a lot of that is connectivity, and it's related to your up and down. We were talking about some of that yesterday. It's obviously on this campus, it's quite challenging. Now, John studied the campus before I did, and I started asking questions. He says, "You don't understand. It's like this." It may be able to touch the other side, but you have to go down like this. Yes, ma'am.
But, you know, addressing that in a sense is, there are some buildings that's connected by bridges that make it easy to get from point A to point B when it's bad weather, freezing cold. So, I mean, is the new building going to be connected to the Fine Arts Building with the bridge?
No, but it's fairly close.
It's fairly close, yeah, but when it's freezing bitter cold.
And the sidewalk is icy.
You know, it's far.
And you keep saying that this is something you're starting to study. We're losing these lots in 3 months. Right? I mean, they're gonna start construction. We're not gonna have these lots. You know, we need this addressed now, not.
Well, the solution is being addressed pretty quickly. Some of the fine tuning will be taking place pretty rapid. I've seen no problem with decision making and direction with the university at this point, which is encouraging. So I think that they're really interested in finding some solutions and getting out all of these details. They wanted to get this. One of the questions was in the back, and she's gone now. Why don't you bring it to us early? Well, you're getting it early, and that's why you're getting a lot of. We don't have any answer for it yet, because you are hearing some of this stuff earlier. We've got the big issues addressed. The biggest concern. Do we have a place to put everybody? Well, the answer is yes. We have a place to put everybody. Now, how do we manage it to make it work? So that's why we wanted to get the input from this group, and I like to get this is early in the process before a lot of these decisions are made. For example, we haven't decided how much of Hilltop Circle is going to be faculty staff parking. We have to find out what that is, and we want to hear what's going on and what your day-to-day experiences are and what your particular needs are. So this really is early in the process, but the process is moving very quickly. Yes, all the way in the very back.
Actually, I had a couple things I wanted to say. First one,
But speak up. We're trying to pick it up on the mic up here.
one of the things that a lot of people were concerned about from what I was hearing is that it seems like this process started a bit later. Suppose we found that we did not have enough spaces. Would you have been able to build a garage in 3 months? You know, why didn't we start this last year when we knew this building was going to go?
Well, obviously, I can't answer that question.
Well, remember,
That was one of the
we
major
did start. We
concerns.
did the study in spring of 2008, 2 years ago. We did this study, which showed us that we had the sufficient capacity. So we knew the numbers at a total level would work. And what we're doing now is figuring out specifically, okay, what does that mean? Where is everybody going to go? But we did the study 2 years ago. We actually started about 2.5 years ago.
Oh, that's right. It's 2008. I was thinking
Right,
2009.
2008. No,
That's right.
2008.
Getting back to what Tim was saying is paying for parking in one space.
I'm sorry.
One thing that I was going to say is getting back to what Tim was saying and paying for parking and why should one space be worth more than another. Essentially, if we're parking on state-owned land and we're working for the state, then it almost seems like an employer tax. You know, if we're working here, we want to park here, then we have to pay our employer back some of the money that our employer is giving us.
Yes, I've heard that argument a number of times, and then when the state decides that's the way it works, that it's kind of a moot point. If they won't let you take state funds to pay for the parking, then the university has no option.
Why is the state charging its employees to park here?
Good question.
Well, private companies do that too. Not everybody who works downtown gets to have their parking reimbursed.
You know, people that work downtown pay for parking. People who work in the suburbs don't. Is that fair?
The research park doesn't have to pay for parking, and they're renters.
Well, back up. People who park downtown, in downtown Washington, they pay $350 a month in a Class A building in Washington, D.C. Someone who works in a Class A building out in the suburbs pays nothing.
But I'm
Is
talking
that
about
fair?
right on the loop, right off the loop where the silo
I
is.
understand, yeah.
He's equating that to the suburbs.
I'm just saying that that's okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say, in the previous planning for this new building, what we looked at and what we saw was a garage in Lot 8. So that was already there on the whole big diagram that was presented to us. There was a garage on Lot 8.
So that was an expectation
Yes.
at some point?
Yes.
And just last summer in the parking, or the meeting that they had over in the lecture hall, they were talking about building a parking structure. Facilities management said something about a parking structure over where the search facility is.
Again, a parking structure is not out of the question as long as it can be paid for by the users.
But that seemed like that was in the plans and anticipated.
Yes, sir.
To
very minor things compared to all the rest of it. After 3 o'clock during the day now, students and anyone else can park in lot 16. Is there going to be some, after a certain point, anyone can park in lot 8?
How
kind of function?
Right. That would be my normal expectation. We haven't got to that point. If you can use it and it's not taking away the parking privileges of people who are primarily assigned, there's no reason not to use it. As long as you can control and manage it, yes. That's a normal type of good use of resources.
And then the second thing is currently there are also vendor and state vehicle spaces in lot 16. Are those being accounted for? I didn't see that on the...
I don't know. I think John may have looked at that, but I don't think we have any specifics.
Oh,
We just have the police vehicles that we're accounting for that are already in the lot.
no, they're an 8.
Well, we have a
I'm
lot
not
of
sure I'm going to
communication
call on you
vehicles
again.
that need parking.
This, from now on, each question is $5.
Well,
Here, let me get my wallet out.
this is more of a logistical issue with Lot 8. It is going to be farther away, and I know personally from my job.
Farther away than
farther away
16.
than
Sure.
my 16 is. I carry things from my office to my car, and I don't just mean like my laptop or my lunch. I mean like actual server units and stuff have taken to another place on campus. This kind of thing. Are we going to be a little more loose with the whole allowing me to pull down in between? Because at some point there's going to be this big building here.
Loading area?
Yeah.
That's
Because
what
right
we
now
did.
it can become it's a chore to try to come down with my own car. I mean, otherwise I got to schedule with this person, I got to get this permit and all this, which it just becomes crazy. And just being able to temporarily pull my car down, load it up or unload it, whatever the case may be, and pull out, that alone would help solve some of my concern there.
I haven't looked at that. So
I just want to
go
throw it
down
out there.
that detail yet. We really, our first concern was the ADA spaces, and
Yeah.
then the pecking order goes down to the loading and unloading area. Do we have another question? For $5, do we have another question? Actually, this is, if you all had come in and sat down and listened to the presentation and said nothing, I would have been not only disappointed, I've been a little concerned and upset. This is normal. This is very normal. And this is what we want, because we want, you experienced, again, I recoil a little bit at the word expert. I see a lot of campuses and a lot of situations. I've been in parking since 1978, so I live it and breathe it every day. But this is your campus, and you have things that go on this campus don't happen anywhere else. And you have a lot of conditions that are the exact same thing that I face in other campuses, but you have some things that are absolutely unique. And when we go through the study, I do not expect this to be the last forum. And we'll be talking about broader issues in terms of long-term planning and control of your system. But it's really important to get your feedback. Now, after this meeting, you'll go back and things start popping to your head and say, God, I wish I'd thought about asking this. Or I didn't get a good answer to that. I want to put it on the record. I want to ask it again. Put it on the blog. We'll try to get answers back to you as we go through the process. The worst thing that can happen is quiet until things are put into place and suddenly you find out all of the unanticipated problems. And that's part of what they're trying to avoid with these forums. And they have 5 of them. So that's a pretty heavy opportunity for folks to talk. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Did we ever get back to you? No. You don't have to pay $5.
Okay. Will there be continual access to the loading area immediately adjacent to Fine Arts, which currently serves
Down at the very
the
end?
art gallery, it currently serves the media
Is that remaining in place?
As far as I know.
Yes. I think so, and we had looked at even the possibility. Sorry.
With the caveat that there's going to be some construction across that driveway, and there may be times when it's closed.
Yeah, we're expecting some closures during construction for the underground work.
And we were even looking at that area as, can we put any handicap down there? Do some reworking of the landscape to get handicap. We're not sure that'll work, but we're looking at that area.
I had one quick follow-on. This might be for Lynn. Will there be transport to local light rail stations? I would take the light rail from Baltimore City to campus, but right now the connections are terrible.
I think that's part of the work of the Climate Change Task Force. We have a transportation work group that's looking at bus routes and ways to facilitate people taking trains, people taking buses to get to campus. We don't have an answer for that yet, and it's going to take negotiating with our the MTA and others.
I would say let's hold on for a second. Don't run off. I would say that because we have some things we need to do. I would thank you very much for attending, and you're free to go, but if you want to stay, and we'll continue on and ask some more questions.
have you considered that in between the library and the Fine Arts Building, there is a plot of land, hillside, that is blank? Could it be possible to build a parking lot there that would serve, enough capacity and would be a little bit more convenient than going all the way up to Lot 8? It's right outside the Fine Arts.
It's not a very big.
Green space.
Yeah, green space preservation is going to be a conflict, but that's always a conflict when you're talking about something that's not already a parking lot. But you do know what he's talking about? Which area?
I do. It's not, I don't think the footprint is big enough. And I would also say if we were going to build a deck, we wouldn't build it in the middle of campus where we have, green space that people appreciate. We build it, more remotely.
And you can share this with some of the other folks that may not be here. One of the advantages that this campus really is at a tremendous advantage over other campuses that I deal with. If you look at the configuration of the campus, you have all of your academic core in one spot, basically. You have all of your residential in one band across the top. You have a loop road that connects around everything around it. You have parking that's inside the loop, so you don't have pedestrians blocking all of the movement around the Hilltop Circle. There is a lot in terms of the way the master plan has developed this campus that really, I call pre-help the problem, the parking issues. Sometimes we have campuses where you have your core classes here, and you have your major classes over here, and you have professors who have offices here, and they're all over the place. But that's not the case here to any great extent compared to other campuses. So we have the luxury of having a master plan that's not difficult to work around compared to other campuses.
Well, and similar to what you had indicated before, I know you said you didn't see that the model where freshmen were pushed off campus worked, but have you ever seen a model where there's
No, it doesn't work.
It's coming back?
There was a real trend in that direction, saying this is an easy fix. And they found out that it leaves a bad taste. The parents some parents like it, some parents recoil. And if you have a working campus where a lot of the students work, then it's not.
Well, where I was getting at with that is, have you seen it ever make sense to have a residential classification of parking?
Yes.
Where it's still maybe on campus, but it's some of the
not
more remote areas.
Yes. That will continue to be considered as we go through the planning process. That automatically, that is one of the default considerations.
For some place like long-term parking, like if you have a vehicle that you park Monday through Friday and only drove on the weekends, then you could be pushed out to
Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
That's Virginia Tech. They have kind of a storage area. Of course, Virginia Tech, they do a few things different than other campuses.
And also, have you considered the impact of any newer residential buildings?
Not yet, no. That would be part of the ongoing study. We'll actually look at land use changes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for my clarification, the plan right
Thanks.
now is to move everybody in 15, 16 over to 8. 8 will not have a gate, and it will be open.
9 and 16.
Okay, and it will be open to all faculty staff.
At this point, as of this meeting.
Okay?
And this is going to go on for 6 years, while the building's being built? You said the building is going to take 6 years to build?
That's for the foreseeable future.
The parking spaces are.
Oh, and we get right into them, right.
Right.
But it's going to take 6 years for this building to be built?
Right now, the funding is for 2 years for phase 1, beginning this summer. And then there's a 2-year delay in the governor's budget for the building. And so then phase 2 would start 2 years later. So the whole span of construction would be 6 years.
This is an unrelated question, but why do we only have one hangar when we have 2 cars registered for parking services? And if you switch cars and you forget to put the hangar, then you cannot park absolutely anywhere without getting a ticket unless you want to put money in the parking meters, which might become full as people realize that paying a few extra bucks gets them closer to the classes now that the parking is not an issue. Could we get 2 hangars or a hangar for
It's
parking?
quite surprising, it might be quite surprising to you, but many people might take advantage of giving out multiple hangars.
Really?
Yes. That's an
I know that you wouldn't, because I know you, but.
No, but can we get a temporary one for free somewhere so we can, because we legitimately I already paid for my parking space.
Yes. Can people call you and tell you they forgot their hanger?
Actually, they
just come to us and we issue a temporary permit for the day, you can get up to 3 free ones per semester if you can get your permit.
So you have to drive by the parking services and just walk in with my ID?
Yeah,
and
if
say,
it's
"I
one of your
forgot my
cars
manual."
registered, if you got your permit,
Okay.
real quick, you get for the day, so you don't need a fee meter.
Thanks for bringing
Alright,
it up.
thank you.
Thanks for bringing
I
it
was,
up.
I was hoping that was true, but I just couldn't answer because I didn't know for sure.
The idea is to control and manage parking. It's not about getting the tickets, so that gives you
But
compliance.
they're just brutal when it comes to giving out tickets. I understand that, I understand that.
The study was done in 2009,